how far did you get in the drug game?
Oh man, I got in it so much that I had to leave Oakland. I got in it so deep, messed up some money, man, and had some folk looking for me, man. My life got threatened. I made quite a bit, man. Doing what I was doing as far as a hustler, but I knew that there was only two things was going to happen to me in that thing. My grandmother told me one time, and I got to say this, man, because my grandmother gave me some of the wisest game in the world. She told me, she said, son, come here. And see, I was my grandmama's baby. And she called me Cat, man. She said, Cat, come here for a minute. I say, okay. She said, let me talk to you. And she pulled me over to the side, and she said, now I know what you're doing out here. They tell me, they tell me what you're doing. She said, but I want you to know one thing. She said, now, Derrick, you're going to get the same time for that little stuff as you will for that big stuff. So if you're going to do it, and you're going to be out here, be the best drug dealer you can be. I said to myself, well, Granny Cole. I said, but at the end of the day, she telling the truth. You know what I mean? So I stepped it up, you know what I mean? I say, okay, well, let me go get her because she about right, man. I'm getting the same time for that little dope.
It sounds good, but she don't know what she just did.
Right. Oh, man, she made me amp the thing up, man. But then at the end of the day, getting up there and, just, messing up, man, and not doing things correctly, man, I wind up losing dope and losing money and getting hooked on the same supply. And everybody know you don't get high on your own supply. You know what I mean? And ran messed around and messed up some money, man, and had to get out of Oakland.
Wow.
I got my ghetto pass revoked.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
When you say touch on it, you mean
well,
about how did I get
looking for you? Can you touch on it a little bit? What happened with all that?
Oh yeah, I can tell you the whole story, man. What happened was, I had messed up the money, and I was standing out there in the parking lot, and I saw this little Hyundai pull up, and it was the cat whose money I messed up. You know what I mean? But now when the Hyundai pulled up, it was like the little clown car. All I saw was him driving. But when the car pulled up, and it pulled up right at my feet, man, he jumped out. Another brother jumped out. Now, I know these cats are shooters. They killers. You know what I'm saying? Another brother jumped out, and he walked up to me and say, what's up, Chili? I said, hey, man, what's happening, man? You got that money, man? And I was like, I don't have it right now, man. I said, I'm probably need a little while to get it, man. You know what I mean? And, he told me, that's the way he would do. Well, man, I'm going to give you the Wednesday, man, to get my money, man, and the other cats looking at me like, yeah, like, you got to Wednesday to come up with the money, you know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, man, he gave me the Wednesday. I was on the bus Tuesday. Getting all out of there, man. I was like, let me get up out of here, boy. This finna get crazy. You know what I'm saying? See, and I knew they had just shot a brother and messed his whole leg. Had his leg amputated. So I knew these guys wasn't playing, man. So, I said, let me get on out of Oakland, man. And I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, man, from Oakland.
Moved to Las Vegas, Nevada?
Uh-huh.
By yourself?
No. Well, yeah. Now here's the funny part about that, man. Let me show you how God had his hand on my life and was involved with me through all of it. I didn't have the money, man, to get out of there. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I started using the drugs at the time, man. And so I was like, man, I got to get out of here. So my wife at the time, man, helped me, called a friend, and they gave me some money. And the money they gave me was enough money to get to Sacramento, California, man. And so I got on the bus from Oakland, and went to Sacramento. Now, when I got to Sacramento, I didn't have no more money, man. I'm out. You know what I mean? And, when I got to Sacramento, I ran into some other musicians that knew me because, man, I got pretty famous with playing the organ and singing around Oakland, man. And, us being signed to Fantasy Records there in Oakland at the time, me and my brothers, so we had become professional musicians and singers even as I was selling dope. You know, understand what I'm saying? And so at the end of the day, I get to Sacramento and I ran into some friends, man, and they were like, we know a church who needs some musicians, da 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 da. So he made a phone call, and at the end of the day, the pastor said, okay. And, I told him my problem and what I was going through. I was being real straight with him, and, he let me play for his church there for a while in Sacramento. So I wound up playing for the church there and staying with his daughters. He had a couple of daughters who he said, that I could stay with. And wind up, man, the daughters was doing drugs too. You know what I mean? I don't think the pops knew it, but they were doing the drugs and stuff, man. So, long story short, I had to leave Sacramento because I didn't want to. Man, at that time, I'm basically through with trying to be high and all that. But I get ready to leave Sacramento, and I look in the phone book, man, and I say, God took my hand and ran down the phone book. This is how God always blessed my life. And I ran down the phone book, man, and it said a church, the name of a church. And I called the church, and the preacher said, we're in revival tonight, man, and we don't have a musician. Because when I called, I said, I'm a musician and I'm in town and da 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 da. He said, well, I need a musician tonight because we're in revival. He said, what's your pastor name? I told him my pastor name, Bill Levias, out of Oakland, California. He said, I know the Levias brother. So he called Bill Levias, and he said, Bill Levias, do you know Derrick Monk? And my pastor there, yeah, Derrick, a good guy, because my pastor didn't know what I was doing, you know what I mean? He said, yeah, he's good, but yeah, he can play. He can really play, And so the preacher then at that time told me, he said, come on, we're going to send somebody to come on and get you, and we'll get you a room for the night. And that's how the Sacramento thing happened, man. From me getting off the bus there in Sacramento and looking in the phone book, and one thing led to another, and then I wind up being with the pastor's daughters there at their house, and coming to find out that they were on dope and stuff, man. And I just wanted to I was tired of that life at that time, so I called this other preacher, man, by another apostle who I had played for. This is funny because God had already had everything set up, man. I called this apostle, man, that I was playing for, Apostle the Cure, out of Los Angeles, California. And he was in revival. And he told me to come on, go with him. And he made a phone call to a lady out of Las Vegas by the name of Prophetess Amanda Irvin. And Prophetess Amanda Irvin needed a musician, so I left Sacramento to go play for Prophetess Amanda Irvin, and through Prophet the Cure out of Los Angeles calling her. And that's how I got to Las Vegas.
And how long are you in Las Vegas at this time?
I played in Las Vegas at Second Baptist Church, which is probably the hugest Baptist church in Las Vegas at that time. Pastor Davis was the pastor there at that time, and I was the minister of music there for maybe about a year and a half at Second Baptist Church. And I met Apostle McCoy while living there in Las Vegas.
Wow, tell me about that story.
Yeah, I met Apostle McCoy. I began to play for for Pastor Davis at Second Baptist, and I knew a brother by the name of Simi Richards, who was a preacher out of Las Vegas. And Simi Richards, and I was going with this model in Las Vegas by the name of Paula McDonald. Her sister was a model, and all of them was real tall. And at the end of the day, she told me, she said, there's an ex-pimp coming in town, and he can really preach. He's anointed. God has changed his life, but he's an ex-pimp. He's from the streets, from the same life as you. And, I'm a hustler. I'm like, man, ain't nobody want to, oh, man, a pimp. Ain't nobody want to go hear no pimp. You know what I mean? I said, ex-pimp out of Denver, Colorado, man, please. And so she finally coerced me to go into that revival that night, man. And once I got to the revival, we pulled up on the yard, man, and I heard this roar coming out of this church, man. I mean, the ground was rumbling. You know what I mean? I'm like, who is this, man? And I mean, just cold preaching, man. And so, I couldn't wait to get inside the church, man. I'm like, I want to see who this is, And so we walked in the church, man, and I saw this brother, man. This brother was preaching. He wasn't just preaching, he was preaching. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, now this is serious. And he was preaching a word that I was familiar with, a word that was hitting directly at me, man. And so, I was like, wow. I said, man, this brother bad. You know what I mean? And so God spoke to me, man, while I was sitting there. I told you God had always spoke to me. He was always moving for me. And God told me, I want you to travel with him. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, travel with him. So while he was preaching, I knew from being in church all my life, I know when you're about to close. You know what I'm saying? I said, man, I'm going to go back. I'm going to talk to this brother. You know what I mean? And so I walked back and went in Simi's office. Simi Richards' office, and when Apostle got through preaching, Apostle McCoy, he came into that office there, and he just started pulling off his clothes and handing them to me. You know what I mean? And I'm wringing them out and putting them up, and so he was like, he asked Simi Richards, who was the pastor, they say, who is this brother? And, but I knew Simi because I had been going around, so I wasn't a stranger to him, but I was in his office and I shouldn't have been, but I should have been because it all worked out. You know what I mean? And I told Apostle McCoy, I said, man, God want me to travel with you. And, I didn't tell him I was a musician, didn't tell him I was anything. I said, God want me to travel with you. And the man of God told me, he said, well, you give me a couple of days and let me pray about it. I'll be here for a couple of days, and then we'll see what God tell me. You know what I mean? And I said, yes, sir. So I said, I got to go to Los Angeles, because I had to play for a revival in Los Angeles because the lady I was going with was Paula. She was an evangelist, and I was going to play for her in Los Angeles. But I said, God wanted me to play for him. And he said, well, let me pray about it. And when I got back from Los Angeles, man, I was at such a low. I was at such a low. I mean, I called the apostle when I got back, and I said, Apostle McCoy, I said, what did God say? He told me, he said, God told me to take you with me and treat you and love you like a son. And that's what he did, man. He took me in and he loved me as a son. And like I said, I didn't want to get to crying now. See, you gonna start some stuff.
Oh man!
But at the end of the day, But at the end of the day, that was a life turning point for me. To get with the man of God at that time.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Man, that's a blessing, man.
Yeah.
What was he preaching that night, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't recall what he was preaching, but whatever he was preaching was hitting me dead in the head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know it had to be about redemption, and getting yourself together. So, the funny part about that is that I had to be hearing from God because he told me that on his way, Apostle told me that on his way from Augusta to Las Vegas, him and his minister of music at the time was parting ways or going through some changes. And the apostle didn't know I played. He didn't know I played till I got to Augusta. You know what I mean? He just thought I was a brother that was traveling with him. But he told me that he had prayed and asked God to send him somebody, another musician. And I was the one that God sent, to be there at that time, man. And when I got there and I began to play and sing, he was like, wow, I see what that's all about now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it all worked out.